Welcome to Get Valiant number 156. We are trying to figure things out because we are talking about Bloodshot today. What's up, fellas?
I'm ready to talk about Bloodshot.
Third time's the charm, damn it.
Third time is the charm, it seems. So we haven't gotten any Diamond isn't shipping, so there are no new comics, so that's a huge bummer. But nice is that we do have Valiant bringing us something to talk about, giving us content, giving us a reason to continue staying Valiant. And what they're doing right now is the Hero of the Week. For the first week, completely appropriate in my opinion, Bloodshot is the first Hero of the Week. So I'm super stoked about that. And don't come at me with that Ninja Cut Rob. Totally should have won that. I don't know. What do you guys think? A steel cage match? What was it? It was Punk Mambo, Ninjak, Quantum and Woody, and Bloodshot. For me, Bloodshot is the obvious victor. I mean, he's got shape-shifting abilities. He's got his durability. He's got control over technology. Quantum and Woody are going to be falling all over each other. Ninjak isn't going to be able to get much attacks off while everybody's going after him because they're going to think that he's going to win, and Bloodshot's going to sneak right past and take the victory. And I don't think that Punk Mambo's magic is going to have a whole lot of advantage over a Walking Dead man. So I'm going Bloodshot. I think that there was the appropriate victor.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, I'm okay with it, I just thought, Ninjak was, pretty worthy, too, But also, I think it'd be easier to talk about Ninjak, as I don't just love every single story that I've read in the last, 7 years that's involved in, whereas Bloodshot's kind of a harder one to pick out and narrow down to, one story. You know what I mean? Because that's part of what we're gonna do tonight. We're each gonna talk about what's some of our favorite stories with Bloodshot, and how do you pick? Remove Rising Spirit. Okay, we're not shills. Okay, but at the same time, though, I mean, if you remove that, you still have Bloodshot. You got Reborn. You've got Salvation. If someone wanted to talk about the new book, I wouldn't fault them. You got a lot of material just from the VEI era. And I know that we still have fans out there that really love Kevin Van Hook's material from the 90s. I don't hear a lot of people talking about, the Acclaim era. It's generally just this, but, that book's not terrible, But anyway, I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff that you can talk about with the character. How do you make that choice? Whereas with Ninjak, I feel like Kids Forever was a little bit hit and miss. Mostly hits. One big miss, but
yeah,
we all know that.
We won't even bring it up.
I think you could say that both of these dudes had one big miss apiece, right? Rising Spirit, the one we choose not to talk about, and then what was the other one? Not Fist and Steel, or was it Fist and Steel? I think it was.
Fist and the Steel.
And, I think both are worthy characters. One of them that we all say, I think we love both of them, and right off of the movie, I think it makes sense to do that, and to talk about Bloodshot, who's currently has a book out right now that's doing pretty good, that we talked about yesterday in yesterday's show, with Tim Seeley writing it. So Bloodshot it is. He won. Let's move, let's talk about it, let's jam out with Bloodshot. And Bloodshot's been pretty awesome for a while. So
hey, so I just barely found our new link, or our old link, or whatever link is working.
Yeah, we got a link.
We're live somewhere.
It's happening.
Somewhere, somehow, someone is watching and listening to this.
So do I get to start?
I think it should be Eric, because Eric is. I always will say he's the number one Bloodshot fan.
We may be able to talk about
first.
it and get it started a little bit, but let's kind of talk about some of the ones that we are not choosing off the top of it,
Oh, so a little bit of foreplay before we go for the money shot, what you're saying.
Hey.
All right. I like that. Especially on a Saturday night.
I love that you included that Goldies cover. So many good Bloodshot stories. We've got Harbinger Wars is an amazing Bloodshot story. That Analog Man,
damn cool.
I think that's that one shot, that 4,000 or the Harbinger. No, the 4001 Bloodshot. Good too, but the one I'm trying to think of is the Book of
Book
Death.
of Death, yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking of. The Book of Death Bloodshot, where we got to see into the future. He had a dog, and then he passed away. Like that quiet moment is one of the best in history, I think. Jeff Lemire really understood the character. He was mentioning, we did talk yesterday about the current Bloodshot series that Tim Seeley is writing, and absolutely, I think that Tim Seeley gets this character and is nailing it.
Yeah, I think, you look at Bloodshot and just the many different arcs that he's had, the different pieces that we've got to see with him is just, it's really fun to see these multiple out here, right now, right? We've got to see some great creative teams work with him, with like Lemire, Dwayne Shazinski, now we got Tim Seeley, Elliot Rahal's written him. We all a fan of his, but we got to see some really cool people get their hands on him. Christos Gage did the hardcore. I thought there was some amazing things, and then what he's done with he's been in pretty much every Harbinger Wars, one of the center key pieces to it. Almost every crossover, he's pretty much one of the staples to Valiant Universe. That's probably why he got the first movie, but we got to see some really cool ones, and it was hard. Yeah. It was hard for me to necessarily choose one.
No, I'm the same way because I just feel like I think like overall my favorite run of Bloodshot I can't nail down because I really like what Dwayne Skrzynski starts with, and even when you go through post Harbinger Wars with the character when he's teamed up with like the hardcore and they're going on adventures, I love that stuff, and then look at and how great that entire 18-issue arc plus this 0 issue plus the annual, it's great, so I mean, like, how do you nail it down? Plus, like, Salvation's still really good. I didn't get a chance to do it. I'm not as jazzed up on it, but I did reread Bloodshot and then Salvation. I mean, and Bloodshot and then Reborn.
Yeah, Bloodshot Salvation didn't quite get the full extent, I believe, of the run. I think it ended earlier just because of something that happened in the middle of it. But we got to get Lemire giving a good part of his story. Outside of Rising Spirit, maybe one of the most disappointed issues actually comes from Salvation. I mean, we could talk about the good and the bad, but you guys loved that Blackout issue, didn't you?
I did not. But to me, it's just like, come on, man. You're going to give me a bunch of black pages with some scribbles, and you're going to be like, here's $4. Read this, like, scribbles. I'm going to bitch about it. I will always bitch about it, okay? The last page looks awesome, okay? The art is great on that last page. But I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like you couldn't make that issue a little bit bigger.
Yep.
You couldn't do a little bit more with it, for, like, what you're making me pay? Come on. And I know that, like, I mean, whatever. I know there's people out there who love that issue, who are like, oh, it's very, very creative. And maybe it makes me just a dim bulb or something like that. I don't know. But it just doesn't, like, reek of, like, quality work to me.
Oh, man. We've spent so much time talking about that, I don't even want to get into it.
I will fight tooth and nail against it, too, goddammit.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it was that bad, and I think that it was cool that they took a risk and tried something different. But beyond that, I want to agree that it was really hard to kind of come down on. We're going to kind of talk about as we each picked a story that we want to discuss. And for me, I couldn't think about it in terms of what's my favorite Bloodshot story. I had to think of it in terms of, what do I think of as a definitive Bloodshot story that I would recommend and that I think that people should check out, whether they be current Valiant fans who are reading what's going on right now and what would I recommend going back to check out, or what would I give to a brand new fan who maybe just watched the movie and wants to get into the character in the comics. That's kind of the tactic that I had to take. And yeah, it'd be too hard to nail down, like, what's my one favorite Bloodshot story, because there have been so many amazing stories.
So here's a kind of sideball. You guys didn't expect this to come. What was your favorite Bloodshot fight?
Bloodshot fight, man. Oh, I don't know, because when I think Bloodshot's been in so many fights, and it's such a normal thing for him. Like those aren't the things that pop out.
Yeah.
Like
So
I don't.
I'll give
I
you
don't
like
think.
what I would say. What I would put is some of the top three that come to mind, and you guys tell me what you think. Number one obviously would be his fight with Harada, right? With the face coming off.
Sure.
That whole piece, him throwing up on Harada, which was amazing. Having the nanites.
It was
everywhere.
literally the first thing I thought of when you said favorite Bloodshot fight. I don't even know if I would think it is, but it's pretty damn
And then
close.
there's the fight with Gamma. Like, that
Mhm.
was pretty damn cool. Gamma in the nursery with the Gen Zero kids. There's another one. And then I'd have to probably... And it would be more like the lines of Divinity 3 with Commander Bloodshot and Ninjak going at it.
Oh yeah. Commander Bloodshot's definitely a good call out there. That fight in the cold was really, really awesome. Ninjak absolutely ruled in that, and yeah, that was badass. So I think that all three of those are really awesome. That fight with Gamma it calls back to the beginning of the 2012 era, the new VEI era of Valiant Comics, in the current Bloodshot continuity. And then obviously that Harbinger Wars fight with Harada was such a huge moment. Like, there are very few things that could touch how pivotal that moment was.
I also really like the fight between the Immortal Enemy, just because like the Immortal Enemy does like some really gnarly shit to him at the end of the Valiant 4, but there's also that moment where the Immortal Enemy can't see in Bloodshot's mind.
Really cool.
And I just love that kind of moment where I love the whole series though. Like, the whole series shows, like, I mean, it's not my favorite book, so that's not where I'm going with this, but I mean, that whole book is just like one big giant
let's
fight
not
anyway.
steal somebody else's thunder there.
And it's not, but I'm just saying that fight is really awesome at the end.
Cool. And then we have Scott Bloom online. He's basically said Rampage, and I'm going to say Rampage could have been, but things kind of played out weird with the way things were, and we didn't quite get to see that. So.
Yeah.
And then anybody want to mention
True enough.
Call to the creators of this book? Do you guys have that on hand?
Yeah, I mean, started with Bob Layton, and then we got
Don Perlin.
Kevin Van Hook and Don Perlin, who really brought the character to life.
Yep, and those guys have been really present, really visible within the community still. They were at the movie, they were at the premiere, and so it's just some good guys. So happy that those guys are kind of getting that, and I want to make sure that we gave them a shout out for kind of the things that they helped along the line to usher this character where it's at.
Yeah, I think that Kevin Van Hook has done an amazing job of being an accessible guy. I think that he's really cool to talk to. I'm super lucky that, and I don't have it right now, I was able to send him some books, and he signed Eternal Warrior 4 for me. He signed a Rise 0 for me. You know, I sent him some books. He did a sketch for me. You can't really see it, but back on the wall there is Kevin Van Hook Bloodshot sketch that he did for me. He's been really cool. He's, like I said, he's accessible. He's really fun to talk to, and I think it's cool that he is open about just how surreal it is to kind of see the character that he helped create on the big screen. And yeah, definitely Kevin Van Hook, and Don Perlin isn't as active, I don't think, on social media, but all three of those guys creating the character and what is my favorite character, I have a lot of respect for and gratitude for.
Don, one thing real quick. Don actually pops up in another comic book group I belong to. I'm trying to think what it's correctly titled, but it's like the low grade comic book collectors group. And from time to time, he actually does like sketch covers commissions.
I like that. That's cool.
I haven't done one yet, just because as long as I've known about him, which has been probably like the last 8 or 9 months, I've just been like like the financial pits. You know, the one thing, talking about Kevin, like, I think Eric nailed it. You know, like, Kevin's super friendly. He's easy to talk to. I've tried twice this year, or I was hoping to have 2 opportunities so far this year to meet him in person, and they both have been canceled because he was supposed to show up at Emerald City this year, where Hoosier and I were hopefully going to get to meet with him in person, and that got canceled obviously because of the whole COVID-19. And then when we didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, like when we were like, "That's serious, but not too serious," right? He was going to be a guest at Wasatch Comic-Con, and I was so excited. And I think like the next day after that, they were like, "We're going to postpone it because this stuff is obviously super serious." So I'm hoping, I'm hoping. I want to get some money together and get a sketch and get some books signed. But Kevin's super nice. He's very friendly, and I feel like if you're a fan, like he loves to engage with you. He's not above the fan. At least that's how I view it.
From him when he was coming to Emerald City before everything happened, and he's just like, "Hey, I'm coming. You want to sketch?" And I was like, "Yes, please. Sign me up. Put me on. Let's rock and roll." So yeah, definitely an awesome dude. So yeah, it's cool to have him, and then Bob Layton, who did a lot, and then who's I don't know if it's canceled yet, but there's the Washington Summer Con that was supposed to happen, and maybe we'll have him there. We'll hope to see, but Bob comes to that, and hopefully maybe get Kevin. So I think somebody else is coming too. But yeah, there's some good Valiant creators coming, and this is one of the key staples. So Eric, let's get into the book that you kind of chose as one of your favorite arcs to talk about today.
Well, as you can see, I got the awesome shirt on, and I've got the deluxe edition that it contains this story. Bloodshot Setting the World on Fire was the first arc of the current Valiant universe. To me, it's also the arc that was adapted for the Vin Diesel movie. So to me, I think that if somebody says, like, I want to get into Bloodshot, where do I start? There are a lot of places that you can point them to, but if you really want to get a full picture of the character and understand him to his core, you got to start at the beginning, and you got to start with Setting the World on Fire. I think that this is a book that gives us a lot of really, really amazing moments. I love how it, in the beginning, we've got Bloodshot we see something that is kind of referenced in the movie when he allows himself to get destroyed, he allows himself to get killed, brought into a medical bay, and then he reanimates and is able to take over an installation from there. And we saw that in the movie as well. And that's one of the opening parts of this arc. And I always have loved that moment. And I think that this is a core, vital Bloodshot story.
Oh, absolutely a vital Bloodshot story. And I think this is one where it got a lot of the fans excited in 2012 because it was the second book out. I think it was XO Harbinger Bloodshot. So it is set with that and Straczynski, who killed it there. And then, some awesome creators that went together with this. So I think it really set the stage for what Bloodshot is right now in the current iteration of Valiant Entertainment.
Yeah, I remember when the books first came out, when they did the 2012 relaunch, this was easily my favorite book out of that launch. I just thought, for one, the art was great. It was really, really good. And one complaint I've always kind of had, once you get past like Post Unity, especially, is that Valiant has such a house style. The books all do kind of look a little bit similar back in the day, and I think after I had all the first issues, they all looked vastly different from one another, but I thought Manuel Garcia's art really shone here, and not only that, but like Straczynski's work I was familiar with. I want to say I'd read The Wheelman, or maybe it was Severance Package before this came out, and I really liked his writing, and so I thought that's great. He was like the guy I was probably the most familiar with out of all the 2012, out of all the books that Valiant launched that time.
Yeah, I remember when the Valiant universe started, I got into it because of the Free Comic Book Day issue, and it made it seem really accessible. So I checked it out, and immediately Bloodshot spoke to me and was a character that stood out and I thought was really interesting. So this is also my first exposure to the character. I agree the art is really good, as we're seeing on the page that's on the screen right now. It's super solid and consistent. And it just showed the high level of care that Valiant was giving to bringing these characters to life. And yeah, I couldn't be more happy with what we got, and I'm so excited that Bloodshot is our hero of the week, and we get to talk about him. I think that this is an opportunity to discuss what I think is one of the best characters in comic books. He is an extremely compelling character, and I think that this arc, hits a lot of those notes where, he finds out that he's being manipulated, and he, he is an emotional character while also being a total badass. Something that Vin Diesel has said a lot in a lot of interviews is that one of the things that drew him to playing Bloodshot is that you've got a character who is both empathetic and also instills fear. And I think that's a and Bloodshot is that character. So yeah, definitely something that I think is a great story.
Yeah, he was just a phenomenal character. There is a lot of depth to him. I know I've heard other people who aren't necessarily Bloodshot fans have actually mentioned how shallow there is, but when you look really at the really core of who the guy is, that there's probably more depth to him than what you would believe. He's and I believe it's really shown pretty well in this first arc that you're talking about, because you're getting to see this guy who has a heart to want to do what's right after he figures out the things that have happened that were wrong, that he's been manipulated to do wrong things, and I think that's a big piece that I liked about the character. Probably one of the arcs that I've probably read the most throughout the 2012 run period. I've probably reread the first deluxe edition of Bloodshot a number of times, more than any other one. So it continues to be an entertaining, interesting, fun read. So I would like to get Shazinski back on it one day too. I think there's probably more that he had to tell, that we didn't get to see all of it, and I would love to have that happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I would love to see more Straczynski.
And then kind of, I guess, moving on to the next one, and let's go kind of chronological order, if you don't mind, Josh.
That works for me.
Because the next one I got here is the one that I kind of pulled up, and that's the Valiant. So, love the Valiant. This book has been pretty awesome. Got my Kent signed book for it. But this one was Jeff Lemire, nice. Matt Kent, Paulo Rivera, and Joe Rivera. The art in this book was phenomenal. The writing was great. This was an event book, the way event books were supposed to be done. It was a 4-issue book that had all the characters in it. It had the whole Valiant universe in it, and it really turned a page for Valiant from where they were to where they were going. And I think it did that more so with Bloodshot. It did really do a lot for the Eternal Warrior in this book as well. But you got to see Bloodshot kind of be like the centerpiece of this. And it was multiple layers. This was a great all-around story, not just a Bloodshot story too, because you got to see Tama introduced. You got to see what's the Dr. Flang, I believe his name was. He was in here as he was quite a weird character. Turned into be the
Mr. Flay,
Dr. Flay, and he turned into the immortal enemy. And Josh was alluding to that earlier when he's talking about that very end scene where he's trying to really look inside, and he had just stopped Ninjak in his tracks, showing him this picture of his mother, basically making a tentacle of his mother to stop Ninjak in his tracks. He had stopped like every one of the Valiant Universe characters in their tracks by getting into their brains and basically looking into their fears. And he tried to do it to Bloodshot. Bloodshot's like, good luck. And I think that's where we got Kay McHenry in this, and she was a very cool character. And what she does with Bloodshot to pull out his nanites, figure out that his name actually is Ray Garrison, so he could figure out what he knows. And then he can move forward, and they can move forward with the character. And then this really was the beginning of Jeff Lemire's run on Bloodshot. This is where it started, and then Bloodshot Reborn. So I mean, we were talking about runs earlier, and I love Lemire's run because it starts right here at the Valiant, and it's a pretty long depth run that he was given here, and it started right here into this piece that touched the whole universe to really just push that, and it was basically had a good forward trajectory from there. So writing, this book was phenomenal. This is where a lot of people actually became introduced to Valiant that I know. I know like Moose, who's been on Hoodoo TV, has been on this. I don't know if he's been on Get Valiant yet, but Moose was introduced to this.
I think we've had
a
him
number
on.
have had the Valiant, and yeah, this was an all-star team. So this is probably the gold standard, one of the gold standards of especially an event. So yeah, enough of me talking.
I totally agree. Well, what I was going to say is like, I got into Valiant in 2012 when the Free Comic Book Day issue came out, and then I read those first 4 books that started, with Exo and Bloodshot and Harbinger and Archer and Armstrong. But I didn't make it very far, and I didn't know if I could commit to, I wanted to either read all of it or none of it, and I wasn't able to commit to buying all of the issues, so I ended up dropping off of reading Valiant for a while, and it was actually the Valiant that brought me back into the universe. I remember going finished. They happened to have all 4 issues sitting there. I picked up the whole story and read it and said, yeah, I need to get back into it, and this is for me. This story, I think, like Hoosier said, is the gold standard. This is one of those books where if I hadn't picked Setting the World on Fire, this is the one that I would have picked. This is such a pivotal Bloodshot story. This is such an amazing story for the whole of the Valiant universe. Definitely something that I think a new reader can jump into and really get a feel for what the universe is about, what Bloodshot's about as a character. Yeah, I really think that the Valiant is there. There's nothing like it in comics. I don't think that any other shared universe in the comic book world has a story like the Valiant that you can point to that, it's more than a crossover while being in some ways less than a crossover because it doesn't require you to read 80 side issues from other sort of involved characters and whatever. It's its own self-contained story while also being, a primer for the entirety of the Valiant universe. So there's something magical about the Valiant that I don't think any other story has really touched.
Yeah, like my own thoughts on it too is that I feel like for me, I was reading all the books at the time, but the thing that about the Valiant and me was that I think this was the book that made me want to become a little bit more of a hardcore fan when it came to just picking up everything and then going back and filling in every single hole I had from the 90s. I think it's when I was just like, I'm a Valiant fan, straight up. Because it was a really fun event. I mean, the thing that was always nice about Valiant's events, and they'd only had, I think, one at the time, which was just Harbinger Wars, it was really self-contained. You didn't even have to buy Bloodshot if you didn't want to. You didn't have to buy Harbinger if you didn't want to. And it made sense. I think it all makes sense a little bit better if you read all of it, though. But I just remember with this, there was no other tie-ins. There was nothing else. But not only that, it had a lot of great moments. One of the first things I really like about it was I love the thing that Ninjak is shown, the distorted mother of his or whatever it was that pops up in the woods. I think it's such a gnarly design. But then I also remember the part where Bloodshot is missing an arm
Has it draped over his own head.
And doesn't give a fuck at all. And he's just going to war. And I was just like, holy shit. Yeah, and I just remember thinking I was like, I don't know what. Because I think 25 had already came out, and it's I don't know where they're going with Bloodshot, But I was like, I hope one of these guys writes it, just because I love how he's handled in the book. And we got that. We got Lemire to take the character over and just do lots of crazy stuff with it. But I just remember this was, in a way, kind of a bad thing for me, just because at that point, I went home and I was just going through boxes. What am I missing? I need everything that I don't have a Valiant already. And then just trying to get variants and things like that. It was kind of bad, but it's worth it.
The thing about it is this story. This story and the ending of this story really made it not the cliches comic book. The guy loses his superhero powers and he goes off wandering. We don't know where he's at. The person you were trying to save gets killed. The enemy just kind of falls into the ground, and you don't really. The mortal enemy's still been nowhere really to be found since this. And yeah, you get the Tama, who's we always want to see more Tama, but it really was like a weird ending, a weird piece, and it, like I say, it was a good push start. And like to some degree is still getting Valiant to where it's at right now, that it's done that with these characters, and we need to see there's still some more resolve that we're waiting from this, but it was a good contained story to allow the whole universe to go in many different directions, and it pretty much did. I mean, like with all of these characters, it pretty much did. And what it did in Reborn and the stage it set for Reborn, I think that's maybe one reason why I love it so much, is because Reborn was so good, and this is what got it to where it was. So
Yeah, and if I could share one more idea on this too, I always think that when someone says that their favorite book is The Valiant, it's one of those things where I'm like, I get it, I totally get it, because anybody can like any book. I'm not gonna agree that like there are certain books that aren't like in the running for like the greatest Valiant stories ever, but The Valiant totally is. I just think it's a fun story. It's easy to get sucked into it. You get to kind of see everyone who works within the Valiant universe at some point in the book. But then I also think if you look at like who the best characters in the book are, Eternal Warrior, Ninjak, Bloodshot, and that's right up my alley. So even if we take out the whole Bloodshot thing from like, because this is what this episode's about, it features it's a story that basically is about my favorite characters in the Valiant universe.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. As much as I'm a core, huge Bloodshot fan, this book has a lot more than just Bloodshot. And, this honestly, I think that this is something that Valiant needs to do more of, honestly. Like, if I was going to say, like, if I got to sit down and say, like, what should Valiant do moving forward? We need more stories like The Valiant. We needed The Valiant 2 done in a similar way where we get to see a huge portion of the universe all come together against a gigantic threat and move some of the characters forward in new directions, because that's what this book really did. I mean, not only did this book set the stage for Bloodshot into Bloodshot Reborn, which has completely revolutionized the character, it also set the stage for the Eternal Warrior. It went into Book of Death, which involved Unity, a lot of characters there. And Book of Death then went into Wrath of the Eternal Warrior, which told us some of the information about Eternal Warrior that no one had ever really explored before. Like, this set the stage for so many different things. And I really think that this is, I mean, it's what was said before. This is the gold standard.
And we're also
really.
saying set
It
the
is.
stage, but I also want to, just thinking about it right here, right now, it also closed the chapter of the first part of Bloodshot. It really was a great new stage to close what was done and introduce the new piece, because the end of it basically leaves him walking off into the sunset saying he needs a break, he deserves it. You know what I mean? He gets to figure out who he finally was. So all of the build up from what you started with setting on fire, setting the world on fire with the first Bloodshot, and then moving to here, it let that good Bloodshot run happen, and it let it get right here, and it did basically have some resolve to a full long arc that it just set up. So it was a good end to that and a new beginning. So it was, again, a gold standard, to get that Lemire run started, but yet finishing out how it started in 2012, to kind of move the story forward. So dug it.
I completely agree with that. I think that's a really good point. It does a great job of capping off what, because this Rosinski run, and then into when Dicer was writing it, and Christos Gage wrote Bloodshot for a little while. I think that they were telling the story of Bloodshot being manipulated by Rising Spirit, and there was so much going on there, and they told the whole of that story. They got every angle of that story that could be told. And this book said, cool, we've gone through all of that. Here's a way to kind of put an end cap on it and open the door for a new chapter in the character's story. And I mean, it couldn't have been done
And I
better.
love how it went this far to really tell him who he really was. I know we talked, and we will talk about it later date on the movie. But I love that it took this long, that run, to actually figure out, hey, you're Ray Garrison. It wasn't just given on a silver platter. It took a while to get there. So.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's
Agreed.
go. Josh has one that he talked about, and you ready for it? You ready? You ready?
Yeah. So, so the one that I chose was Bloodshot Island. A lot of fun. Also, we also wanted to try to do this in a way where we weren't talking about the same books, because I feel like any one of us could have chosen the Valiant. I could have very easily have chosen that first arc of Bloodshot, but I do feel like when I think about my favorite parts of what Jeff Lemire has done on the character, it's Bloodshot Island. I first off, I love the setting. I love the fact that Project Rising Spirit has this island set up somewhere. Nobody knows about it, and they just have these decommissioned Bloodshots running around, just getting their asses kicked. They're basically like fodder for their brand new weapons. And in this case, their brand new weapon is a character named Deathmate, who has a gigantic tie to the Valiant. So if you haven't read that, I imagine everybody's read that as well who listens to this. But it's obvious it's Kay. You know, she's been transformed into like this killing machine, something very different from what she is as a geomancer. Then Bloodshot comes on. Bloodshot meets the Bloodshot Squad, the decommissioned Bloodshots that are different from him. He also meets Bloodhound, the best dog in the world, you know, best comic book dog ever. And, you know, and it takes a little bit of his thinking to try to get them out of the problem that they are facing, which is they get hunted to death every single day of their lives. And then they're put back in their pods. They're left to recharge from the nanites, rinse and repeat. I felt like this also was the kind of book where it did lead to a lot of good things that Jeff Lemire did with the character also. Bloodshot USA being one of them, then Salvation, which is still really good too. But to me, like, there's a lot of like jaw-dropping art to this book. One of the things that's been really great about Bloodshot, I mean, it's been like one of the most consistent things about the character, is the art. I mean, up to this point, he always just had really great art. This storyline was no different, but Miko's art is just insane. I mean, there are so many just beautiful pages. There's so much violence on those pages, you know, because these guys are going to heal and they take just a punishment. But it's an absolutely great story. It's actually the last Bloodshot story I've read too, and I like the fact that they did stuff like the director's cut with this. It's actually kind of hard not to pick Analog Man too, because Analog Man, which was the storyline before this, which was a story set within Ray's head, just had crazy Luis LaRosa art the whole time, and you saw things like Bloodshot drive his knees through people's faces and shit like that. I mean, just fucking people up like left and right. But this book was a good one. Bloodshot Island's a good one just because you do get to see a little bit more of the vulnerabilities of all these guys who, even though their nanites are killing machines, they're something a little bit more high tech. But they figure it out. Awesome story.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Deathmate was a really great addition to the Bloodshot mythos. And this was the arc where we got her. You know, we were just talking about how awesome the Valiant was, and you know, all the things that it set the stage for. And really, you know, we went from the Valiant all the way here to Bloodshot Island before we saw Kay again. And while Dead is dead in the Valiant universe and characters don't come back to life, Kay was reanimated in the same way that Bloodshot was reanimated. So she's not really alive anymore, but she is reanimated, if that makes sense. So she's a technological zombie, essentially. And Deathmate, I think, is a really badass, underused character. I'd love to see them use her again.
Yeah, in some capacity, if they could bring her back, it'd be awesome. You know, just in the right way. I think that.
Whole Bloodshot Squad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that's really cool, like Josh, you mentioned the art with Miko, and then the colors with David Barron was on this as well. And I believe there was we also had Thomas Giorello and Diego Rodriguez did a issue on it as well. But these guys loved, and having Miko, he's been posting recently. Man, I really wish I could do Bloodshot again. He's actually posted that recently, which I would love to see Miko back in Valiant. We're doing some Valiant characters, doing some Bloodshot again, on any level. The guy's art is phenomenal. Baron, who's been a Valiant staple for colors for a while. But it was cool to have those people who love the characters doing it, and it really showed in this. We got some, you guys have already said it, but just reiterating it, we had some really cool characters introduced with Tank Man, Viet Man, who's the Bloodhound. And then they were just basically living, the Groundhog Day all over again. You wake up in the morning, get killed, get regenerated. It was a really interesting aspect of this story to get out of this repetitive kind of like game of that they were being played with Project Rising Spirit. I think this was the last arc of Reborn, right? And then it moved on to Salvation. But it really was fun. It was, like you were ready to read each issue. I remember them coming out each issue, and you were just excited for each issue. What's going to happen next? How is this going to end? And like Eric just said with Deathmate's a dang cool character. And then just in a way, that reborn rebirth of Kay McHenry as Deathmate, and would like to see that more, see how that's played out further. But this was probably Analog Man. To have Analog Man and then Bloodshot Island were two fun arcs back to back. So we got, 8 issues in a row right there that were just absolutely, just kind of fun to read, hardcore Bloodshot fun stories.
Yeah, I feel like if you were, even if you didn't like the story, which to each his own, but if you bought those 8 issues, I feel like you would just be like, they're really cool looking. At the very least, you'd be really impressed with the visuals. But those, again, it was so hard to pick anything just because we all kind of have the same taste. We're all big Bloodshot fans. The book has been really good for so long, but this one stands out too.
Yeah, I totally agree that this is a standout issue, or standout arc rather. Analog Man was such a great story, but then finding out that it happened in his head kind of makes it hard for it to have a huge impact on Bloodshot as a character and on the continuity. So going from that to Bloodshot Island, where we're getting everything that happened in Bloodshot Island was a huge impact on the Bloodshot mythos and continuity, because we're getting Kay back. We got Deathmate, this addition of this new character, or revamped character. We're getting the brand new Bloodshot Squad. We're getting the dog, and this set the stage so much for moving into Bloodshot USA, which then led us to Bloodshot Salvation. I think that this is really, I've used this word a lot on this episode. This is another pivotal moment in the Bloodshot story, that has really defined the character and brought him from where he was to where he is now.
One other thing I really like about this arc, it's totally separate from the story, but one thing that's been great about Valiant, maybe you like this stuff, maybe you don't, but I love variants. I love collecting variants. And this arc in particular had just a ton of great variants. There was a interlocking set, which I like those. I'm a big fan of collecting all those too.
Yeah.
There was the Lemire one that was just like the Barry Windsor Smith original #1, but it was Blood Squirt. Each issue had one that was like based on like another book's logo. So there was like one, like a Bloodshot Reborn one that looked like Captain America's old logo. There was one that looked like Suicide Squad's old logo. I think they were all done by Derek Robertson. I'm not positive. I know a couple of them were, but just a lot of cool visuals, even on the covers, and it makes it hard when you're trying not to. How you really can't find those 1 in 50 variants. You can find the one for #1, and you can find the black and white for #1, but that's it. Some of those things just disappeared, and so sometimes, like with this arc, it was just like, I'll just buy everything. I don't care. Just got to have it all.
Yeah, this arc had a lot of amazing covers, and I think Bloodshot Reborn in general had a lot of amazing covers. I think Bloodshot Reborn.
Hey Eric, do you have every variant on this one too?
Yes.
So you have every Reborn variant?
Correct.
Damn.
awesome. Yeah, there was some
I have-
gorgeous covers throughout Reborn for sure. Probably, yeah. Just that setup. I mean, I could pull up a number of them that you could look at and just be like, yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Oh, that La Rosa cover?
One of
Yeah,
my favorites. Just
absolutely.
coming out of the red circle. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a bunch of those La Rosa covers for Bloodshot Reborn that were amazing. I'm looking at up on my wall. I've got the Bloodshot Reborn numbers 1 through 4 connecting variants where Bloodshot is shooting and the bullet goes through. He's shooting on issue 1, and then the bullet goes through 2 and 3 and hits a red circle in number 4. That's another. I think that's a Miko cover that you're showing right now. That's a really, really good Bloodshot cover. I think Reborn was kind of a golden age of Bloodshot covers, really. And yeah, I'm very happy to have all of them.
I think there's a number 1 for like I think it's Red Skull Comics. That number 1 variant's rad.
I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but I've got it.
It's like a red background. It's a red background. He's got the guns up, like kind of like in an X position against his chest. But I also think there's a Juan Jose Reap variant where it shows like maybe like little versions of himself come like bothering him or something like that on the covers. It looks great too.
Yeah, there's so many amazing ones. Honestly, like it would be hard to pick a favorite, but. There's the Carrie Nord Bloodshot Reborn number 1 that I really, really love. There's just so many, but was one that not only had great covers, but like you were talking about before, had such amazing interior art with Miko Suayan, and then the issue that Tomas Chiarello did. Yeah. There's a lot of amazing art in the Bloodshot Reborn run as a whole, and Bloodshot Island was one of the arcs that really highlighted what amazing art can look like in a comic book. There are some moments like when he's realizing that the island is shielded and he's going up to the shield. I remember looking at that panel for quite a while. I think that's a Bodenheim cover that's on there. That's a really good one with Bloodshot and Blood. So many amazing covers, and the interior art is so phenomenal. Yeah, great pick, Josh.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement on that. That this was a phenomenal book and run. Yeah, there's so much that are on there, and we could talk about Bloodshot all day long. I know we could. Here's one of the ones that I love. Yeah. This is the one I was looking up. It's Analog Man. We talked about Bodenheim earlier, and this one just kind of for Analog Man. Just I loved this freaking picture here. It was so cool.
Yeah, like you said, we could talk all day. I mean, I'd be more than happy to pull out a box and we can go through my collection of Bloodshot covers, and I'd love to talk about each and every one of them.
Yeah, there's too much that we kind of keep going with Bloodshot that we like, man. And then we're talking about where we're at with Tim Seeley now, and where he's kind of been staged. We didn't talk about Bloodshot USA a whole lot, which was kind of really what followed Bloodshot Island, and that was a cool Bloodshot story that hopefully can come up to something. Now there's Jesse on board. We didn't really get to see anything with Rampage. Maybe we get to see more Rampage down the way. Omen, the Burned, the Black Bar. He's got a lot of different factions that have always been kind of going up against him. So, yeah.
There's so much. There's so much in the Bloodshot mythos that, I can't wait to see where the character goes next. I can't wait for and see what Tim Seeley has in store for us with the Bloodshot run. And yeah, like Ronnie is mentioning in the comments, KT and Wiggins are supposed to be showing up in the comics as well, and I really, really can't wait for that.
Yeah, I think that's great. They were awesome in the movie, and you know what? Like, why not put them in the comics? Seriously.
Yes. Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Why not put him in there and read the end story of KT in the Bloodshot novel, in the movie novelization novel. That was a pretty cool story for her. It's kind of like her origin story into where she got in with Bloodshot or with RST, Rising Spirit Technology. Kind of where that's realm. So, yeah, dig it.
Well, awesome. I'm really stoked that we got to do this kind of special episode and talk about Valiant's Hero of the Week, Bloodshot. It's always cool for me to get an opportunity to talk about Bloodshot, but coming up on Monday, there's going to be another poll. If you go to the Valiant Twitter, Valiant Comics Twitter, they're going to have another poll on Monday to choose the next Valiant Hero of the Week. I can't wait to see who they pit against each other, what the poll question is, and who ends up winning it. And we will definitely be talking about whoever that next Hero of the Week is. I'm excited for Valiant doing this Hero of the Week initiative and can't wait to see what's next. We've also got books that we still have to review and that little movie that they did with Vin Diesel that we're still going to review coming up as soon as we can. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of right now. There's still a lot of amazing content that we have yet to talk about, and I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to say, I'm just going to throw this out there. I think if there's a week where Quantum and Woody win, we got to get J-Rob on to just hear what his opinion is of like what the best Quantum and Woody story is.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, there's another awesome Salvation cover. I think is that Bodenheim?
I believe that is, because I know he did a lot of the pre-order editions on Salvation. So, but I know people like puppies, and how do you not love this dog?
Who doesn't like puppies?
The goodest Bloodshot, as I always say.
He is such a sweet, sweet dog. He lived a long life.
He was the smartest of them.
He's the oldest Bloodshot there is. So, rock and roll. Yeah, it's fun with these. Yeah, when we're willing, people had asked online, what is Valiant going to do? Get Valiant going to do with no comic books? Don't worry, we have a lot of comic books to talk about, old, new, future, speculation, whatnot. We'll still be around. We'll have fun. We could talk about anything all day long. And, I think it is a good opportunity to get some back reading in, get some of these old stories and kind of digest them all over again. And maybe we could talk about those. And this Valiant Hero is letting us do that right now, right? We just got to talk about 2012 first arc of Bloodshot. We got to talk about the Valiant. We got to talk about Bloodshot Island. It's been fun. So, that's kind of trying to find the the little golden piece into this situation and worldly concern that we're in right now.
Yeah, 100%. Got to find that silver lining. I want to say thank you to everybody. I know Scott Bloom has been hanging out with us as always. Different Minds, Ronnie Barron in the chat. Definitely happy to see everybody hanging out with us and wanting to talk about Bloodshot and Valiant in general. What do we got? Fan casting? Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, we can talk about fan casting for future movies anytime. That's definitely something that if we've got a week where we don't know what to talk about in an episode, we can fill an episode talking about fan casting.
Who would you have play Bloodshot not Vin Diesel?
Who would I have play Bloodshot that's not Vin Diesel? I don't know, man. I'm actually really happy with Vin Diesel. But there are a lot of actors that I think that could do it,
Frank Grillo.
Frank Grillo could totally do it. Yeah.
This image up on the screen right
I think
now
honestly,
like him, actually, yeah.
Honestly, man, I think Sam Heughan could do it. I know that he was obviously already in the Bloodshot movie, but that's another one that I think could do it. I think that another one that I would love to see, Michael B. Jordan. I think that he could definitely play an amazing Bloodshot. Yeah, there are lots of actors that I think could do it.
That's awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody, for hanging out with us in the chat. We will see you on Wednesday for sure. We've got more books to talk about, and yeah, we're definitely not going to have any shortage of content. So thanks again for watching, for listening. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell so that you get notified when we do special episodes like this and go live without a lot of notice. You can still be involved and hang out with us. Signing off, I'm Eric Baumgard.
I'm Josh
And I'm
Rathbun.
Hoosier.
And we will see you guys next time. Stay valiant.
Peace.